Hi, hello everyone. Welcome back to Sondering Tarot. And if you happen to be new to my channel, hi, hello, I'm Celeste. This is Sondering Tarot. And today we're going to do a VR that's very extremely late, I apologize, to Waves of Your Soul. This is the Good Mood deck. So all the decks I have out of my 2022 collection that either put me in a good mood or inspire a higher vibration, or decks that I very much like to use when I'm in a good mood. I believe it or not, I have more decks than what I thought I did to fit this category. My collection compared to others is fairly small, so we're just going to go ahead and get started. The first is, here I'll zoom you in so you can see it a little bit better. I have this lovely piece of apatite. Let me get that out of the road. First is the Tarot of Pirates. Now, this is an out-of-print deck. I had to go all the way, and as you can see, it's the Russian version, to the Ukraine to get a copy of this deck. And I have an inner pirate, so this deck amuses me just for that. Here is the lovely backings if you've never seen this deck. And as you can see, I do take reversals. I'll flip through so you can see some of the cards. I do have a bit of an inner pirate, and this deck speaks to that. And what's hilarious is that as soon as I got this in hands, I asked what the strength of this deck was. And lo and behold, this is the card that popped out, the Ace of Pentacles. So a pirate deck giving a pentacle card for what is the strength? In other words, career is the strength of this deck. I probably laughed myself to death for a full 5 minutes before I ran through the house and told every single person that lives in my house that treasure, career, treasure, literal treasure is the strong point of this pirate deck. It amused me right off the bat, and it's one of those little niches that personally speaks to me. So I don't think this deck will ever leave my collection. And because of its amusement, it is very much a good mood deck. And to one of my Soul Tribe members, Winter, if you're watching this, I'm pretty sure you are laughing your butt off right about now over not only me enjoying a pirate deck, but just how the strong suit of the deck came about to be known. Every time I pick up this deck, sometimes I think about that, and I have a good chuckle to myself. It is fabulous. And I do have a flip through of this entire deck up on my channel. In fact, I just made a playlist of tarot decks and then another playlist of oracle decks of flip throughs that I have. So if you'd like to find that deck quicker, go to that playlist. It is on there. And the next good mood deck is one that a lot of us are very familiar with. Let me get my Angel Aura Quartz out of there. The Personal Power deck. This is by Deja DeWitt. This is an indie deck. Deja does a lot of different decks. She's got multiples. I fell in love with this deck because of Baba Jolie and her channel. I saw this deck, and I'm a purple person, but not a pink person. But I love the layout of this deck, the looks of this deck. It pleases me aesthetically, even though pink is never my thing. But this is a bright, colorful deck. And then it is an oracle deck, but I treat it more like an affirmation deck. I think this deck is very young, but the way that it comes across with me, it's very bright, it's very hopeful, and yes, it does bring a bit of a pep into my step. Just the whole approach of it is wonderful. If I'm down and I pull a couple cards from here, I'm usually, in a better mood by the time I'm done with it. I mean, there's a couple cards like I Am Worthy. There's a couple cards in here that can call you out, but the way it's done, especially with the artwork, is brilliant. And yes, I do consider it something to be more lighthearted. As I said, it feels like a very youthful deck. to me, but it's not an annoying age gap or anything like that. And I'm not a person that is drawn to really bright colors. So the fact that this is very bright and isn't my aesthetic, and as you can see, it's depicting modern people, which I have a hard time connecting to modern decks. I don't know, there's something about it. It does it for me. And that's everything. To have a modern feel, youthful deck that is far brighter and whatnot than what my normal aesthetic is, to put me in a good mood, means it's done right. And I don't know what other way I can say that. So somebody who is feeling far more eloquent than I am today, please feel free to reiterate my mantra here of, it makes me feel good. Speaking of modern decks, the Lightseers Tarot. Now this is one we are normally very familiar with. This is also a deck that I got introduced to by Baba Jolie, just like the previous deck. I never had a pull towards a modern themed deck until this one. And believe it or not, this deck is my air element. So inspiration, creativity, ideas. So as you can imagine, knowing that, this deck fills that for me. And yes, it is a deck that is modern. There's the backings. It has modern imagery, but a lot of it is colorful. And I love this Eight of Swords. But the approach to it is in a way that I can stand this. I can connect with it. And it works for me. This is also another deck that does feel fairly youthful to me, but there's some sort of creativity, creative energy that goes through with this deck that speaks volumes. There's some images in this deck that I really, really enjoy for the uniqueness. And part of that is because this was an indie deck, although I don't own the indie version. I just own the mass market version. Not that any of the imagery has changed. So brava to Chris Ann for not giving up any of the artistry when they went mass market with her deck. But like this, the Eight of Pentacles, that speaks to me. That's total creation vibes in that card. And I love it. Like I said, bright and cheery is, or at least bright colors, vibrant colors everywhere is not my thing. But this is the right amount of balance between color and darkness in an artistic style that is still inspiring and creative to get the juices flowing. There's other decks that are very bright, but they're done in a different art style, and I have no pull towards them whatsoever. But I love this deck. This deck will tell me what is what when it comes to projects and my ideas and where I need to go with them. And it doesn't come across as harsh. It comes across as a very good pep talk. It usually tells me to have confidence and belief in myself, to keep on going, that it's worth it. So I get a lot of support from this deck, believe it or not, which is great. It's also one of the reasons why it's my air element deck. Now, will I ever get a deck that will put me in a good mood, inspire me enough, and take the place as my air element deck? I have no idea. I guess that remains to be seen. And as I grow older, maybe that will change. But for now, this does it for me. This is perfect. It's definitely a deck that gets me in the right mood to really look at things, which is great, especially if you feel stuck. All right, and we're gonna pop another oracle in here. Whispers of the Ocean by Angela Hartfield. I'm a water sign, so ocean is very much my thing. I love it. And of course, my animal totem is a dolphin. So having a oracle deck that connects with my water energy and has my totem in it. Here's the backings. Oh, and look, the dolphins. This deck has plenty of them. There's a lot of sea creatures in here. This is a very colorful deck. And there's light cards, there's dark cards, there's not always the higher aspect in here, but this is a deck that really makes me think. This is one that, just because of the aesthetic and the way it feels to me, how I connect to it, because it is water, I cannot be angry or upset or mad the longer I stare at this deck. It disappears. I love that so much in a deck. And this is one of those that I use it fairly often. There's quite a bit it pairs with. And yeah, some of it is brighter that is not my aesthetic, but for color range anyway. But this jives very well with me energetically, and it makes me tearful. And I'm sorry, but I love the amount of dolphin that is in this deck. I currently do not have a flip through of this deck up. If I remember right, I don't have a flip through of Deja's. I have the Light Series Tarot as a flip through. You'll also find it on that playlist that I mentioned earlier. And with that, we're going to segue right into this tarot deck. And of course, it's more ocean-themed mermaid. So here's my happy little childhood moment. I grew up watching Little Mermaid. Yeah, you officially know how old I am. But this is my water element deck. And as a water element zodiac sign, this is my comfort zone. This is my home. This is where I want to be when it comes to a deck. This is how I want a deck to make me feel, because it is my element, my comfort zone. And the fact that this is a water deck that is mermaid, it is fabulous because I get a very great aesthetic with it. As I said, childhood vibes with the Little Mermaid going on. Here's the backings. I do have, I know I filmed a flip through of that. I can't remember if it's up yet. You'll have to look in my playlist. But these are, and I apologize if there's a glare, because this is a Llewellyn deck. There's high gloss. But I love the approach. I mean, a mermaid helping a whale out of a neck for strength. I mean, there's so much to this deck. I love the approach of some of this. And yes, it's a little bit brighter, but it's not overly bright. This is probably my perfect color scheme as far as tone. I mean, some of the other decks I showed you, the colors are a lot brighter than this deck, but this is like the perfect balance for me when it comes to color range. There's still color, but it's not overly bright. It's not distracting. but it's not totally muted either. It's definitely there. This is a deck that makes me feel most at home, just because it's a water deck. And yes, there's the nostalgia for it being mermaid themed. Well, I come across another deck that will do this better, maybe, perhaps, but I don't really foresee this deck going anywhere. Literally anywhere. I have a very strong connection to this deck. And when I read with this deck, because it is my water element deck and it is my element, I usually have some of the clearest readings ever with this deck. Which of course pleases me, makes me happy, because where I can grab another deck that isn't doing so great of a job, if this deck can do the same job as that one, I can pull cards from this and it's like hearing static and then all of a sudden hearing a clear voice out of thin air. So what was muffled ends up becoming, you know, a scream that you can hear as if it's literally right next to you. And I like that. And sadly, even though I'm on a coastal state now, I'm still hours inland, so I'm not by the ocean. So I guess this is my way of connecting with the water as well. With this deck, being able to play with ocean-themed things. I'm sure other people do that as well. For those that are in, like, say, a landlocked state where you guys collect or use tools that are ocean-themed or remind you of the ocean to connect with that energy. Alright, folks, I have one more good mood deck to show you. And that is, whoop, if I flip it upright, is the Fairy Tale Oracle. This is an indie deck. And going back to our childhood nostalgia, I mean, all of us know fairy tales. And this is a deck that does it super well. And they're fairy tales, here's the backings, fairy tales from all over the world. And I love the artwork. I mean, if there was a full second part to this deck, or a tarot deck done by the same artist, I would probably buy it. There you go. There's more mermaid sacrifice. For nostalgia reasons, I love this deck, and it works so well. I love using this deck. In fact, because this is a deck that was added to my collection in 2022, because I backed it on Kickstarter. This was one of my top 10 decks for 2022, which, if I remember, I'll link that video below. I have yet to film a flip through of this deck, I'm afraid. If you have this deck, you know how great it is. I'm sorry for anybody that missed out on it. I think that this deck is very well done, because not only do you get the fairy tale at the bottom, but you get a keyword that fits very well with the story, that even if you aren't familiar, here, let me find one that you may not. Here. The Real Princess. Now, if you are not familiar with that fairy tale, and I don't believe this is one that here in the US you would be familiar with, given the artwork and the keyword, this is a deck that will tie in enough that you don't need to research your fairy tale. The guidebook, of course, will give you more, but aesthetically, this is something that's done right, and to connect with it and use it is... How do I want to put that? I am not feeling eloquent today, as you can tell. I mean, the excellence on the artwork and the keywords is fantastic. It reads very well. It's very inspiring. It's very nostalgic because it is fairy tales, and I love that. I don't have a lot of decks that are based on fairy tales. In fact, I think this is the only one I have in my entire collection, and I have 52 decks for my collection as of December 2022. So I've gotten a few more since then, I'm afraid, but I in a way, I guess the only way I can word this is to say it makes me a kid again. This ties in so much with my inner child, as I said, nostalgia vibes, that I cannot not be happy with this deck, or when I use it. And of course, I will get a flip through of these other decks filmed and uploaded shortly. If you guys want to, feel free to go ahead and save my playlists for tarot flip throughs and oracle flip throughs. That way when I go ahead and post those flip throughs, they will be added to the playlist. If you guys have any of these decks, if they are considered one of your quote-unquote good mood decks, go ahead, feel free to tag me in your VR for good mood decks. That way I can see them as well, or leave me a comment down below. As I said, this is a very late VR to Waves of Your Soul, but I actually enjoy this. I was surprised I had this many decks in my very small collection that fit this category. And if any of you else have a suggestion as far as decks or tags I can do VRs to for this sort of thing that you would like to see from my collection, please, by all means, comment down below. I will film that as well and get it out to you. Thank you so much for watching, and I will catch you guys next time. Bye.